there is a theme here that it happened just as he said, and that he is God, because God made a promise to Abraham that was ultimately kept alive because he prepared Joseph through all the waiting and all the hardships and all the lows and all the twists and the turns. And yet he used Joseph to preserve an entire lineage that was the offspring of Abraham to also keep his promise to Abraham. And what I love about that is that promise to Abraham ultimately is talking about Jesus. And so think about it this way. If in the past we look back and it was just as he said, he being God, then what has God promised to us about Jesus?
Welcome to Let's Talk About That, the podcast where we dive into conversations about life and share stories of faith. We're thrilled to be on this journey with you. Whether you're a longtime listener, someone who calls the Orchard home, or you're just stopping by, Let's Talk About That is your space to explore, reflect, and connect. Join us as we navigate the intricacies of faith, spiritual formation, and daily life as we invite guests to share their stories with us. So grab a cup of coffee, find a comfortable space, and let's do this together. This is Let's Talk About That, where you can be encouraged and inspired by God's work in our lives.
All right. Well, we are back here on Let's Talk About That. We are taking back over for the moms who were on here last week. If you missed that episode, had Marybeth and Aaron and Aston on the podcast. They always do a great job. But today I'm back with Matt Pennington, the, at this point, essentially co-host, series regular. I don't know.
Yeah, the barrel scraper.
I wouldn't say that. I would say that you are reliable, you are accessible, and I think people enjoy our conversations. But let's be honest.
In the sports world, what do they say? The best ability is what?
Availability.
Yeah. There you go.
Let's just say you got a great voice for podcasts, man.
I'm glad you think so, because I hate listening to myself, seeing myself on videos, all that stuff.
Isn't that miserable, like
it's
listening
awful
to yourself?
Yeah.
I hate it. I really, really do.
Even worse than listening to yourself, though, is seeing yourself on a video.
See, I don't know. Yes and no. Let me tell you,
my wife gets on to me all the time, like, why'd you do this with your hands or whatever? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. I
don't know what I'm doing with my hands.
I'm just thinking and talking. Yeah. Whatever else happens is just its own thing.
Let me tell you what's brutal that I used to do a lot when I was, first preaching regularly, pastoring in Mayo. I would go and watch the videos from the message. Mm-hmm. But I would mute them.
Yeah.
And then you just pick up on all your bad, awkward habits, because it's crazy how many habits you have physically when you talk.
That's what I mean. And you see them on a video because you're unaware of them.
Yeah.
It's probably something that I need to do, but that's a hard pill to swallow.
I
don't
brutal.
like to listen to myself. And
if I listen to the podcast after when it drops,
I usually listen to the podcast anyway. So
yeah, I do. I'm hit or miss. I listen to the podcast when it drops. I have not listened to all the episodes of the new podcast that we started, Impact Leadership.
I've listened to, I think, all but one of those.
Yeah, I haven't gone back because that was a little bit more weird because it's not a conversation. It's like me, sharing or whatever. And to be clear, I really actually enjoy, doing that. I enjoy.
Do you like talking to yourself?
Yes, I do. People can verify. But no, I mean, I like it's short. It's just like content. And to me, there's those podcasts are different, right? There's content podcast and there's conversation podcast.
Yeah. Honestly, when I've listened to it, I think about it and I'm like, man, I'm glad that you're doing that because I would struggle because you can't have conversation. Like you're not going off of somebody else. And it's not, sometimes in this kind of a podcast where it's more conversational.
Yeah.
Somebody says something and it jogs a memory or a thought or something. And then you go off in that direction. When it's just you, it's kind of like it can't be too scripted and formal because then it sounds like you're just reading a dialogue or a monologue. But it also, you have to know what's next because there is no question that gets me off.
That's right. When we're on this podcast, like talking today, you and I know that we're going to be talking about, we had baptisms. We have just finished the sermon series Unplanned, a big November out there ahead of us. So we know a lot of what we're going to talk about. But
I have a good illustration.
Oh,
it's like an Operation Christmas Child shoebox. you get a shoebox, but you can put in it whatever you want as long as it fits in the box.
There you go. That's a great illustration.
And by the way, those are due back in November 16th.
November 16th.
But yeah, that's kind of this podcast, right? It's like we have a box and we know some general things that we want to hit on. But really and truly, until it's over, you don't know exactly what's
where
going
it's
in
going.
the box.
But with the Impact Leadership, that content-focused podcast.
It's like a Lego set.
All right. Break that down for me.
Like there's a clear set of A to B to C to D.
Yeah.
Because you have a big picture in mind.
Hey, this is an illustration I'm going to use. Yeah, absolutely. Which, by the way, if you have not yet seen the Impact Leadership podcast, they will drop on Wednesdays. And there's a whole new channel for it. Just look up Impact Leadership. And maybe we'll even get Adam to add this to the show notes, a link to it that you can check out tomorrow morning if you're listening to this the day that it drops.
But I know that's not our goal, but just tell people what the heart behind that is. Because obviously I think a lot of people don't understand that there's a lot of overlap, I guess, between the church world and the just the general principles of leadership and things like that. Organization, structure, systems, all that stuff. A lot of that, there's overlap between like the business world or just organizationally or whatever. So talk to people while you got them.
Yeah, I think so. The heart behind the Impact Leadership podcast was twofold, to be quite honest. The first one was that at the Orchard, we're a multi-site church, right? Obviously, Live Oak, Lake City, Brantford. We've had locations that we have helped spin out to be autonomous churches, Ocala, Jasper. But we also partner with other churches that are already existing, already autonomous, whether it's just to strengthen them, to encourage them, to help replant them. And our heart of the church is really to lean into more of that, to really begin to help the local church impact lostness right here in North Central Florida. And in order to do that, we knew that we needed to build bridges of connection to those local churches and specifically the pastors. And so I honestly, this may sound bad. I don't know. But for me, I'm the lead pastor at the Orchard, right? But I could really care less if I'm walking down the street in Live Oak or Brantford or even Lake City, honestly, and people go, "Oh my gosh, that's Chip. He's the lead pastor at the Orchard." I don't want to be the face of the Orchard for people in our communities. I want our church to be the face of our church in the communities. But with local churches and pastors specifically, we really feel like they just need to hear a voice and see a face that they know they can reach out to if they need help, if they want to go to lunch, if they want a cup of coffee. And then in order to do that, we said, well, let's just do this podcast to have some conversations around leadership that can be helpful for these local church leaders, that can begin to open the door for them to feel comfortable about, hey, I can reach out to that guy. They give his email address in there. Let's, see if we can get together. And so that's really the first part of it. The second part of it is that I really am passionate about leadership in all forms. And leadership in the local church should not saying it always does, but it should not look different than healthy leadership in other places in our life. And that's what you were talking about, whether you're a parent leading your home, a coach leading a team, a boss leading a business, a principal leading a school, or a pastor leading a church. Healthy leadership is healthy leadership. And there are biblical principles for that in that podcast, maybe I mainly apply it to the local church context, but
listening to it, I think the illustrations and stuff, but that's because that's where you live.
Well, I'm not going to pretend to know, what it is to run a school or run a business. I don't know how to do that.
But I've listened to that and what I want people to say, because I live in the same world. So I get it. But what I want people to understand and to hear is, hey, if you're not in ministry, like paid ministry, then there's still leadership principles that apply to you and your job. And here's what I would say to people is that whether you realize it or not, every single person is a leader to a degree. You may not be a leader by title at your job because you're the low man on the totem pole or the low lady on the totem pole. But I promise you that your kids look up to you and you're teaching them things and you're passing things down to them. Yeah. And so I think it's helpful just to realize that these leadership principles, like they apply across the board. And you don't have to be in ministry to get something from that and to hear from that. You know, especially, man, I love sports, right? But I love coaching, and I love, like, coaching requires leadership. If you don't believe me, look at what's going on in the landscape of college football right now. As of the recording of this podcast,
it always finds a way in during football season.
But I mean, really though, when you look at, I mean, you're talking about millions and millions of dollars that are just flying around right now because people are so mad at what? They're mad at the results on the field, but those results on the field, when you start digging behind the scenes, a lot of times those are leadership things.
A lot of times they really are. I would say, going on record, I don't think that was Napier's case in Florida. I think he was a good leader. I think he just has no idea how to actually coach a football game.
But here's the thing. This is what's fascinating to me about leadership is, at the end of the day, if your name's on the check and you're at the top, then you are the leader, and therefore responsibility is on you. And so leadership also looks like, hey, do I have the right people in place?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is the organization running how it should?
And that's some organizational,
but it's also
leadership
personnel,
principles.
you know, and so anyway, I think it's interesting.
Well, I think, how about this? If you're listening to this and you struggle to see yourself as a leader, we can all agree that in some place in your life, you have to exercise leadership.
Exactly.
Right? Like, you're going to have to exercise leadership in some way. You can lead up, you can lead down, you can lead sideways, but you're going to be doing some kind of leadership. Yeah. And I, obviously am biased, but I think that there's some content that's relevant for everybody there. So check it out, help share, get the word out. It does not have the traction that we have on this behemoth of a podcast with our dozens and dozens of listeners.
So you only have 11 followers on that one?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't even know. They shared with me the numbers from like the first day or so that the podcast was out there, and it's about half of what Impact Leadership, what Let's Talk About That does. But it's growing. Hopefully it's helpful, and check it out if you want to. So what we really want to talk about, though, is not how awesome my podcasting skills are, because they leave something to be desired. But really want to talk about stuff that's been happening around the church, starting with maybe what happened yesterday at the church. All three locations. We had baptisms. You guys had some in Live Oak?
Yep, we had 3 in Live Oak. And then I know Robert, I don't remember exactly how many he said that they had in Brantford, but I know they
6.
had some.
He had 6. We had 10 in Lake City. So, I mean, that's almost 20, that's 19 people. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point to remind people, when we say a lot that we are one church in many locations, that at the Orchard, there were 19 people who publicly declared where they identify with Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection yesterday through baptism. And so I think that's one thing that, because in our services, second service we had 1, first service we had 2.
Yeah, that's right.
And so if you attend, it's like, there's one guy, and that's great. Every baptism is worth celebrating. But again, it's just a good reminder for people that, hey, you are part of something much bigger than what you see on any given Sunday. And yesterday there were 19 people who made that public profession.
Yeah, that is absolutely true, because no matter where you are at, if you attend the Orchard, you're a part of that.
Exactly.
You're a part of what makes that happen. And I love what you said even about the services, because you may only see 1 or 2 in a service. But then, like in our second service, we baptized 8 ladies, all ladies, baptized 8 ladies in the second service. I think that's the most I've ever done in a service. Yeah. And it was crazy, because it was like so many that I'm thinking, I'm going to have to cut the message.
I was going to say,
like, not out, but
yeah, that's exactly where my mind went, was like, I mean, because it's worth celebrating, but it also takes time, is like, man, 8, that's your message. So did you go over?
No, I did not. We were out in 68 minutes, I think. Close.
That was my chance. I was hoping you'd say yes.
No. Matter of fact, when we got to the end of the service, it was like 11:35. And I remember saying that because I was like, hey, if you looking at the clock, you're saying, oh man, it's 11:35. He went 5 minutes long. And I would just like to point out that, nope, we planned 70-minute services, not an hour services. So I still got 5 minutes. I got one more announcement.
That's right.
So that's how that played out. But, it was cool. When you're a pastor, and you know this, Matt, that each baptism is a little bit different, right? And especially when you know the stories behind them. And it was really cool this time, because the week before baptism, I was out. We went to the beach to visit with my dad for a little while. But Aston, who's on podcast last week, she has come on staff with us here. she had most of the conversations with those 8 ladies in the second service, like over the last few weeks, taking them to lunch, taking them to coffee, hearing their story, and then just getting to hear her share the stories. And then one of the couples they're not a couple, it was a couple of ladies. It was actually a grandmother and a granddaughter that their family had been coming to church for a while. And the grandmother in particular, her husband passed away here several months ago. And I was able to go be with the family a little bit and do the funeral service for them. And that's how I met her. And it's crazy, even like seeing through that process, her coming to faith and wanting to be baptized. And then the granddaughter who is now becoming baptized, and the daughter in between them was baptized.
O'Day, right?
I think it was at O'Day. Yeah.
I remember you sharing that story.
Baptized at, no. That was actually a different story.
Oh.
That was a mom and a daughter. But I'm now confused. That was a mom and a daughter, who she lost her dad, lost her husband. Yeah. This was a grandmother who lost her husband. Her granddaughter was baptized with her yesterday. The daughter was baptized earlier this year, end of last year, earlier this year, kind of in between, at the Orchard. And,
wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's just really cool to kind of see that and see how it just, keeps rolling, right? That, you see how one, butterfly effect or whatever, can spread out and begin to impact more and more lives. And that's such an encouraging thing to me, because I'm sure you've seen this in your life in ministry. You've seen it in Live Oak. It just feels like the most evangelistic tool we have in our churches are new Christians.
Yeah. Or just people in general. Like, I tell people this all the time, and I said it in Next Steps lunch yesterday, is like, it's not, people don't come to the Orchard because Chip is the pastor and the worship is great. Like, I mean, we like to think so, but really and truly, the reason that people come is because people who are sitting in the chairs go and live on mission, and they have impact.
It's like Carey Nieuwhof said in a video of his on social media I saw this week. He said, look, people have better music and better content in their pocket 24/7.
Yeah. And so I think sometimes we like to think it's because of, the speaker or the band or whatever, and I'm saying this to the people listening because you are the ones.
Yeah, you're the ones making the impact.
And I think that's the key word, is it is impact. And so in this case, you see the impact that it has from a daughter to another daughter to a grandma, and you just see it, and it's impact. That's what impact is, and that's what it looks like.
Yeah, one of the things that if you've been around church for a while, you've heard, I'm sure, is because churches love to say it. Churches love some cliches, man. We love us some cliches. And one of my favorites is the message never changes, but the methods always have to, right? Or maybe the other way around, depending on what kind of church you go to. The methods may change, but the message never does. Mm-hmm. I actually like the statement because I know what it means, right? It means that we're going to preach the gospel. We're going to stand on the truth of Jesus. But if church has to look different, in the next generation, whatever, that's fine. Mm-hmm. However, if you're nitpicking, I disagree with the statement, because the message doesn't change, but neither does the method. And what I mean by that is, from the beginning of the church, from Jesus' teaching his disciples, people have always been the method of God's mission. It has always been people. There's never been another method. It is people reaching people. And, I think we sometimes maybe try to do too much and get away from that. But the truth is, like you're saying, Matt, is that you guys who call the Orchard home, who live out the gospel in your life, who follow Jesus at the ball fields, at the office, at the school, whatever, you guys are the ones who are helping reach others, because people reach people. Yeah.
One of the statements or the illustrations that I've heard in church that I think is really helpful to really convey the exact same point that you're making is when you think about a spiritual lineage. A spiritual lineage is always connected from person to person, just like you had parents and grandparents and great grandparents. Like the reason that you exist is because it was passed down from generation to generation through people. And that's exactly what you're saying, is from the birth of the church in Acts chapter 2, like you see this explosion, and it's Peter who stands up on the day of Pentecost and he preaches the gospel, and 3,000 people come that day. Well, guess what? Through people, through their lives and through their lips, they carry the message of the gospel, and 2,000 years later in 2025 with Wi-Fi in your house and an iPhone in your pocket, guess what? That same gospel is still being preached and passed down from generation to generation, and it's happening because of people.
Yeah, it's all about those connections, those relationships. And I think one of the ways that the church has failed I have to just speak for American culture because I really don't know any others, but what I see in Western American culture is one of the ways the church has failed is by isolating Christians from lost people.
Yeah.
We do so much at the church. We do so many programs, have so many events. We have Christian this, Christian that, that we take believers away from unbelievers. Mm-hmm. And so that, spiritual lineage that you talked about, it breaks down. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the heart of why we want to be a simple church at the Orchard. We want to make sure that you have time to be around lost people, to talk with them, to build relationships, to share the gospel with them. And that doesn't happen if, Monday night you have, a small group, and Tuesday night is evangelism night, and Wednesday night is then serving at student ministry, and Thursday night is this singles knitting circle or whatever. You just go on and on. And so I do think that those relationships are important, and we have to make room for them.
Yeah, I agree. For me, I like to think about it this way. I love, and we're talking about this, I love the fact that you guys are the ones who invite your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, and we want to encourage you to do that. But more than that, I love when you go and you feel equipped and confident enough to go, and you are the one that has that gospel conversation with your friend, your neighbor, your coworker. And so it's not that we don't want you to invite people to the church, but we need to understand that people don't have to come to the church to hear about Jesus. We are not the professionals who have the only ticket for people to get in. And like, if it doesn't come through Chip or Robert or Matt or somebody on staff, then, it's not good enough or it doesn't count. We want you guys to know and to understand that when you go to work, we want to give you all the tools necessary to be able to have that conversation in the break room, or, before work, or in the parking lot after work. Like, that's the goal, and that's the spiritual lineage, because it's passed down. And we did a whole series on this called Share. And the whole point of that was we want to give you these tools. We want to help you have the confidence in the gospel
confidence
to be able to have these conversations. And it's not dependent on you giving a flawless presentation.
That's right.
It's built on relational equity that you have with the people that are around you, who work with you, who live in your home. You have the relational equity. You've already earned the right to speak truth into those lives. And when you pay attention and you listen to people, they speak about their problems, they speak about the symptoms in their lives, then you have an open door to then bridge the gap and say, hey, let me tell you about the Jesus who meets us right in the middle of our circumstances.
It's those ellipsis moments, right, that we talked about.
So cool story. I got invited to a Bible study a couple weeks ago. It was on a Thursday morning at a local coffee shop. And the guy that invited me, he goes to our location. And when I showed up, I realized that he was kind of the one leading the discussion that day. And what was awesome to me, I told him, like, hey, I'm just here to sit. Like, I'm not here with all the answers. Like,
isn't that the worst when you're like, awkward. Everybody knows you're a pastor and you're about to say, and everybody just like turns to look at you.
Yeah. Because I want them to know, like you have the same Holy Spirit that I have.
That's right.
You have the same insight, and you can read God's word and talk about it. And they did, but it's just, how it is. It's a little awkward when you're the pastor.
Yeah,
like, I don't want you to think about me differently. I'm just one of the guys in the room.
Honestly, let me just pause for 1 second and just throw this out there. If there's a pastor in your life personally, in your family, a friend or whatever, don't make them be the only one who says the blessing at family meals.
Oh, I just flat out refuse sometimes.
Do you?
But that's what I say. And my friends, they know I'm going to say this, but every time they look at you, because they don't say it, they just look at you and kind of wait awkwardly. Yeah. I'll just tell them, like, you got the same Holy Spirit I got.
Hey, you know what? I have heard that it tastes better if a pastor blesses it, but no, that's not true at all. So
I need to bless my own cooking.
No, I mean, I think you're 100% right. Those things, they get awkward, but I didn't mean to stop your story.
No. So anyway, what was cool is, and they were talking, they had already started a series. I was just jumping in the middle of it. But what was really cool is that the guy leading it, who goes to our location, he referenced some of the stuff that we talked about on Sunday morning, and he specifically referenced the ellipsis moment in this conversation with other people. And so for me, it's like, that's the point. I want to give you the tools. If I can put language on it or handles on it to make it easier for you to remember. But the goal is not for you to put it in your toolbox and store it in your shed somewhere. The goal is to put your belt on every day and take your tool belt to work and to say, hey, here's the tool that I'm going to use today because God's opened the door for me to have this conversation.
Well, that's one of the things that we say in our sermon planning all the time is that we want to put a handle on it, right? We want to put a handle on it. And what we mean is that in our sermons, right, we're not creating truth. The truth exists. It has always existed. What we are telling you is not some new revelation that we discovered. That's not how it works. This is the objective truth of Scripture. What we want to do and what we work so hard at is finding a way to put a handle on it so that you can take it with you.
Exactly.
Right? That's the point. That's why we work so hard to say things in a specific way or to help you see them in a new light so you can put that handle on it and take it with you. And one of the most joyful moments that we get to experience as pastors and preachers is seeing somebody who grabbed that handle, took it, and then used it.
And that's the whole point, right? The whole point is for you to understand biblical truth, biblical principles, and most importantly, the gospel, so that wherever you go, Jesus is already there with you. You have the opportunity to go and to take Jesus with you wherever you go through conversations and relational equity that you already have.
Yeah. So let's say this. I think that these are both fair statements in light of what we just talked about. Number one is it is a good thing for you to invite your friends to the church.
Yes.
It is a better thing for you to share Jesus, to share the gospel with them personally.
Exactly.
So that's good and better, not bad and good and better.
Yeah.
The second thing is that if you're going to share Jesus with someone and talk about the gospel with them, that's usually not just one conversation.
Right.
It comes through repeated time over time, looking for those ellipsis moments. And may we even dare say, Matt, those are often unplanned moments.
I see what you did there.
You see that? That was good. That was good.
Let me say it this way. I agree. It's often unplanned because it's organic.
Yes.
Right. But I think those conversations are always first degree conversations. And here's what I mean. I mean that they are premeditated because you are ready.
Yes. So that's exactly where I was going to go. They may be unplanned. They don't have to be unprepared.
Exactly.
When we look at...
And isn't that what Peter says?
Yeah.
Always
100%.
Be ready to what? Give a defense for the hope that is in you. Always be ready. You don't know when the time is coming. That's the unplanned portion of this. But you are always ready because you know that it is Jesus and what he has done for us that provides this foundation from which now I live my life because I've been made new. I have new desires. I have a new heart. I've experienced transformation. And so I'm always ready because I know exactly who it is that changed my life and saved me. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the preparation side of it. I don't know when that moment's going to come or what it's going to look like or even who it might be, but I'm always prepared to give a reason for the hope that is in me. And that is, it's the gospel. It's Jesus. Jesus.
That's right. And I think, we've spent 5 weeks talking about Joseph and the unplanned moments of his life and how God used those unplanned moments to bring about his plan. How his plans, God's plans, are bigger than Joseph's plans.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that we didn't talk about a ton in the series is exactly this. It's that unplanned moments are usually some of the best times to share the gospel. They're the best times to talk about Jesus. But like we just said, they may be unplanned, but you can't be unprepared.
Yeah.
You have to be on the lookout for them. You have to be sensitive to them. And you got to understand that, and this is what we did talk about this last message in the series, is that when you look back over the course of unplanned moments in your life, God wants to use those so that you can speak into someone else's life. So all those troubles and heartaches and unplanned moments that you've been through in your life, you can leverage those to talk about Jesus with people in your life. And I think that's something we can't miss coming out of the series.
Yeah. You mentioned cliches, and one of them, I cringe when I hear a lot of the cliches that are around the church world. But one of those that I think in this case kind of hits on what you're talking about is that God can turn a test into a testimony.
I knew where you were going as soon as you said.
I feel like I need to take a bath even after saying that. Like, it just makes my skin crawl. But anyway.
Thank the Lord it didn't come to stay, but it came to pass.
Exactly. But you can't overlook the truth of that statement. And what you're saying is the whole series, the whole life of Joseph is like, here's a real guy. I mean, he really went through it. You're talking about 13 years from the time I had dreams and everything's great. I'm the spoiled, entitled favorite child to, oh, I'm stuck in a prison for something I didn't do. I mean, that's 13 years.
Wild.
That's a couple flips of our pages in our Bible. That's 13 years of real life. I mean,
yeah, time does not make sense to us when you read verse by verse like that.
It doesn't.
You just don't get
but here's what I would tell people who's listening to this. And really, if you even went back in that series, think about where you were 13 years ago. Think about how much life has happened in your life, how much has changed. I mean, you may have kids that moved out of the house that they were still dependent on you 13 years ago. You know, like they couldn't cook their own meals. They couldn't wash their own clothes. Like, I mean, 13 years is a long time when you put it in perspective.
Where were you at 13 years ago?
13 years ago, I was at Liberty University.
Nice.
As a single college student.
Nice.
Yeah, which is crazy.
13 years ago, I was finishing my last year of pastoring in Mayo, had a 2-year-old son, and the orchard was right around the corner.
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
13 years ago, the orchard was only 5 years old.
Look at that.
And I have no idea where they were meeting or what that looked like.
At 5 years old, we were in the skating rink.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did Live Oak exist?
Live Oak existed at the Spirit of the Swanee.
Okay. So it was probably pretty new though, right?
Yeah. It was, I mean, I want to say it was maybe a year-ish old around then.
Yeah. So anyway, I just think if you put it in perspective, right? Like even just saying it, 13 years is like, oh, that's a long time. But when you stop, you press pause, and you can do this when you read your Bible. You can press pause, you can shut it for a minute, and you can just spend some time thinking like, hey, what did my life look like 13 years ago? And when you think about how much has changed in those 13 years, all right, ladies, forgive me. Think about how much your appearance has changed in 13 years.
Whoa.
Right. And I only say
Emails
that
to Matt, please.
Well, I say that because us guys, we're too dumb to really know how much we've changed.
Yeah.
Like we still think we're the young stud muffin who was 20 years old, right?
I had a buzz cut and a black beard.
Yeah. We are blind to the gray and the wrinkles in the mirror. But you ladies, you're more sensitive to that. And I get it. And that's fine. I'm not critiquing you on that.
Did you just call them vain?
No, I didn't. I said
sure?
they're much more in tune with appearances than
All right.
But the point is, man, so much can happen in 13 years. And here's a guy. And here's the thing that we have to understand. It's not just what you read in your Bible, it's how you read your Bible.
Agree, 100%.
Here's a guy who heard from God. In fact, this is one of my favorite observations in the whole story is when Joseph stands before Pharaoh and nobody can interpret the dream. He's like, oh, the cupbearer's like, oh, I forgot. There's this Hebrew guy. He's in prison. Like, maybe he can do it. And Pharaoh's like, I'll try anything at this point. So he calls Joseph. He tells him the dream, and Joseph tells him what it means. But then he says this, and because God gave it to you twice.
Yep, twice.
He has determined, and it will happen soon. The guy saying that is the same guy at 17-year-old who had not one dream, but 2 dreams. And they both meant the same thing, that his brothers and even his father were going to bow down to him. And he's in a position of elevation and authority.
Yeah. And to be fair, it was at least that long ago. Could have been earlier in his childhood.
Exactly.
We just know it was in his childhood.
So you're thinking a minimum of 13 years. And here's Joseph who's saying, because God said it twice, it's going to happen. Meanwhile, 13 years of his life has gone by. And he's gone from favorite child to a slave with no freedom. He's gone from an elevated place in Potiphar's house to being lied about because the seductive wife didn't get what she wanted. And now he's in prison. And then in prison, he finally is like, hey, there's light at the end of the tunnel. This guy, this is going to happen. By the way, he says that to the guy, right? When this happens in 3 days. Remember me. Put a good word in for me. And then he sits there for 2 more years, sitting in prison for a crime he never committed, while he's probably watching the cupbearer just live life to the fullest. Like, here's a real guy who went through the gamut of 13 years. Again, 13 years, a long time of questioning and wondering and waiting. And, oh, this is finally that breakthrough moment. And then I come crashing right back down and the floor gets lower every time, right? Like, that's a real person. And what I love about the whole story is, and we said this in Live Oak yesterday to end the series, is, and yet this is really not a story about Joseph. It's about a God who keeps his promises against all odds.
Yeah. Absolutely.
When it looked like there is no way this is going to happen. And yet 13 years later, it's as if God said, Joseph, I've been preparing you for this moment. I didn't forget about you. I didn't abandon you. In those 13 years, it was a long time. It was a trying time. Things did not go your way. You took a detour. You went and waited, like all of these emotions and these things that we feel. And we get to the end of the story and we see like God was there the whole time.
Well, and we pointed out in the message this week that you can look back over Joseph's life and see how God used those moments to prepare him for 100%. What he ultimately did with Pharaoh, whether it's, the dreams and how that came full circle, whether it is what he did in Potiphar's house was the same thing he did for Pharaoh,
and I
just on a smaller scale.
Don't we miss that?
Yeah.
That here's a guy who went from favorite child to slave. And yet when you look and you see the end of the story and you see, oh, wow, maybe God has something even better than I thought, imagine, right? His purpose is greater than I ever dreamed. He gained firsthand experience for what he would do on a much larger scale for the entire nation of Egypt. And yet he did it in Potiphar's house because the Lord was with him and he found favor.
So I want to show you something else. And you may have already seen this. I just know that this was something that did not hit me until the very end of the week before I preached on Sunday, because I wasn't at the meeting on Tuesday. I was, out at the beach visiting a dad. No, wasn't doing that. Not that kind of guy at the beach. We were eating and sleeping most of the time and shooting guns with my dad. That was a good time. But if you look at kind of the very last verse, I think it is there in Genesis chapter 50. Or the very last verse of that section, the story where Joseph says in Genesis 50:20, what you meant for evil, God meant for good, to bring about the present result, the survival of many people. Then his brothers fall down to, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's this phrase. It said, and so he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. And that phrase, he comforted them, just blew my mind. Right? Because what has just happened in the middle of all this? They all lost their dad. Mm-hmm. Joseph lost his dad. His brothers lost their dad too, right? They were worried. They were anxious. But in that moment, Joseph, who needed comfort just as much as they did, he had lost his dad as well, right? He comforted them. Yeah. Why did he do that? How was he able to do that? He was able to do that because he had endured and been through so much in his life. Mm. When you go through hardships, you learn how to comfort others. You learn how to be there for them.
And a test can become a testimony.
Won't God do it?
I think about that. And again, this is reading between the lines, but I think this is important because it's not just what you read, it's how you read your Bible. I think sometimes it's important to stop and to kind of think through the implications of what you read. And in that moment, you think about, we've experienced death, like we've talked about that, right? And there's a grieving process. There's stages to grief. And one of those stages is anger. Yeah. And I think there's a real sense in which Joseph, because of the loss of a dad and grief and all that. Think about if Joseph really latched onto that. He could have pointed the finger at these guys and said, we all lost our dad, but because of you, I got 20 years less of my dad. Because by the time he was sold at 17, he was promoted at 30, but the famine didn't happen for another 7 years. You're talking about 20 years where Joseph did not see his dad. And in that moment, he could have latched on in bitterness and anger, and he could have said, you guys cost me valuable time with our dad. And in this moment, he could have latched onto that bitterness and just acted in rage. And so I do think that's a very powerful statement, because what we said in the message was God does something in us before he does something through us. And it looks like 13 years is a really long time. And it looks like, God, where are you? I'm stuck in the prison. I don't deserve this. I don't want to be here.
I'm still here.
And yet everything that Joseph went through, God ultimately used it to prepare him for what he had prepared for him.
I think that there's so much there when you don't just break down Joseph's life incident by incident, but when you just look at the grand scope of all that he went through, it all fits into place.
It does.
And, I think God does that in our lives. Sometimes I don't think it's obvious to us. Mm-hmm. We might not even know until we get to see Jesus face to face, but I still believe God does that.
Yep.
Let me ask you this. Totally random, but I've got to ask you. that whole section after Jacob dies starts off with his brothers being worried and then telling Joseph, hey, here's what dad said right before he died.
Yeah. So, well, not only that, but they also, this is the second time they basically had this conversation, right? The first time he reveals himself to them, they're terrified. And so it's interesting that like, it seems like they made it through that. But then when dad dies, it's like this whole new wave of, oh, wait, maybe Joseph was just being nice to us because dad was still here.
That's right. That's right. So here's my question. Do you think that Jacob actually said that to the kids, or did they just come up with that and go tell Joseph?
Oh, 100% they made that up. 100%. I joked about it in Live Oak, and it's like, hey, Joseph, we were cleaning dad's house and we found this note that he left. We just want you to know that he really wanted you to be nice to us the rest of our lives. Right?
Yeah, dad wanted you to not kill us.
100% they made that up.
Yeah, okay.
Which we also know they have a history of scheming. So
really? I missed that.
Yeah.
I missed that. Yeah, that's good. It's been a good series. Heard a lot of good feedback from it. Shout out, Pastor Eddie is the one who led us through this series. Did a great job helping us all get prepared, and it was really good. I think it was really helpful. And then, like we said, don't forget to use those unplanned moments and leverage them to talk about Jesus. That's some of the most important things that we can do.
Yeah. One other thing I want to point out. And I found myself, and we talked about this on Tuesday. I know you were getting a suntan, but on Tuesday we talked about the challenge of this message, just to kind of give you a peek behind the curtain from like a pastoral standpoint is, okay, we've been talking about the life of Joseph. We've been basically covering, a chapter at a time. Which is fairly digestible. And then we get to, all right, we left off in chapter 41 and we're ending in chapter 50. There's a whole lot that happens in between this. And so the peek behind the curtain is, from a pastoral standpoint, is you got to figure out what you can and can't talk about. And it's so rich. I mean, really, like, how it is, right?
Yeah.
You can't say everything. And there's so much in the life of Joseph that I didn't get to spend a lot of time on this. But I do think it's worth mentioning on this podcast because it gives us the freedom to do so.
Yeah, we got time.
There's a theme. If you go back and read the story of Joseph, from the time that the cupbearer and the baker have the dreams, there's also a theme that seems to be repeated, and it happened just as he said. And so you see it, and Joseph says, hey, these guys, they have dreams, and we talked about it, right? When this happens, put a good word in for me because I don't want to be here anymore, right? But if you go back and read it, there's this thing that's repeated over and over again, whether it's said explicitly or just shown in the text, that it happens just as he said. And why I think that's important is because it doesn't say that explicitly in Genesis chapter 41 when Joseph is promoted, and then in Genesis chapter 50 when all of this is fulfilled. But if you read in context and you go back and look at the overarching life trajectory of Joseph, you get to that moment and you realize, hey, when God gave those dreams to Joseph when he was 17 or maybe earlier, and then you get to the end of the story, it doesn't say it, but I think what the author is saying is, and it happened just like he said.
Absolutely.
But in this case, that he is not Joseph, that he is God.
Yep.
And he is a God who is faithful to keep his promises. He is a God who is good and does not abandon you when you go through unplanned moments or even unplanned seasons. And this is where I ended it in Live Oak, is I even zoomed out further. And this is not really about Joseph. Joseph was used, and he says that to his brothers, that God meant this for good. God planned it for good to bring about the present result. What's the present result? The survival of many people. Who are those people? Those people are the direct descendants of Abraham, who years before this, before Joseph was ever born, God made a promise to Abraham.
That's right.
I will be your God and you will be my people. And because of that, all nations will be blessed through your offspring. By the way, Abraham, you don't have any kids, but I'm going to take care of that too.
Yep.
And what you see is that through the life of Joseph, not only did God keep his promise to Joseph and his brothers, but he also kept his promise to Abraham, because if Joseph's family dies off because of starvation or retaliation, then now God's promise to Abraham is now in jeopardy.
Yeah. And I think, I mentioned that in Lake City too. And when you realize Jesus came out of Abraham's family tree, but it wasn't from Joseph's branch.
Wasn't Joseph. Exactly. And so if Joseph retaliates and he says, you know what? You guys cost me the prime years of my life. You cost me valuable time with my dad. and you know what? I am going to hold on to the bitterness and I'm going to return evil for evil. Then you know what? Let's just have some fun with this, and they're done. Well, then you don't have any descendants of Judah left.
Yeah.
And Jesus descended from not Joseph's lineage.
Nope.
But
Judah.
he is referred to as the Lion of the tribe of Judah because he descended from one of Joseph's brothers who, in his compassion and forgiveness, he allowed them to survive because he provided for them, but he also forgave them.
More specifically, the brother who said, hey, let's sell Joseph to those guys.
Exactly.
It was Judah's idea to sell him into slavery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Crazy,
so I think what you see is there is a theme here that it happened just as he said, and that he is God, because God made a promise to Abraham that was ultimately kept alive because he prepared Joseph through all the waiting and all the hardships and all the lows and all the twists and the turns. And yet he used Joseph to preserve an entire lineage that was the offspring of Abraham to also keep his promise to Abraham. And what I love about that is that promise to Abraham ultimately is talking about Jesus. And so think about it this way. If in the past we look back and it was just as he said, he being God, then what has God promised to us about Jesus? It's that Jesus, because of his death on the cross, he conquered sin so that you can be forgiven, you can be redeemed, you can be rescued, you can be reconciled. And that is a promise that God has made to us. What does John 3:16 say? For whosoever believes in this Jesus, who is a direct descendant of this lineage, that whosoever believes in Jesus will not perish but have everlasting life. That is a promise that God makes, that if your faith is in Jesus, then you have the hope of eternal life because your sin has been paid for.
Yeah.
And so I think when you look at Joseph's story, you really see beyond that this is really about God's character. And he is sovereign to overcome evil, the evil of other people, both Joseph's brothers and Potiphar's wife. God overcame that. Those things did not derail God's plans and purposes, even though it looked like it might. God is sovereign over that. But also God is faithful to keep his promises. And one of the promises that he made, and he made sure that there was a lineage for the Messiah to be born into, is that Jesus walked to Calvary. He died on a cross for you and me. And God's promise to us is that if our faith is in Jesus, then our sin has been paid and you have the hope of eternal life.
Yeah.
So that one day we can look back and say, and it's just as he said.
Just as he said.
Just as he said.
You know, and I mean, what did the angels say at the tomb when they came looking for Jesus? He's not here. He's risen.
No, he is risen.
Just as he said.
Just as he said. You know what the disciples went into to prepare the Passover, and Jesus tells them, hey, you're going to find a guy with a colt and da-da-da-da-da.
It happened.
And it says, and it happened just as he said.
You know, I think that what's even so, I think, important for us to understand as the church in 2025 is that God was faithful to his promises to Joseph, but his promises to Joseph came through dreams. Joseph didn't have the book of Genesis to read, right?
Exactly.
Here we are in 2025. God has made promises to us, but we have them recorded black and white in the pages of Scripture.
We don't have to guess or wonder.
We don't have to guess. We don't have to wonder. And then we have stories like Joseph that are not promises to us, but they are examples of how God is faithful to keep his promises, and they encourage us to trust those promises.
Yeah.
So
They
I think
show
that's
us
really good.
They show us the character of God. And this is one of the things that we saw also in Joseph was you see a pattern repeated in Joseph's life. When he was in Potiphar's house, it says the Lord was with him. So he did not abandon him, even in his slavery. When he lost his privilege and his status in the family, he's a slave who's lost his freedom, and the Lord is still with him. So you see a pattern. The Lord was with him. He found favor. And because he found favor, he was elevated to authority, right? You see that. Joseph goes to prison. And what does it say? Even in prison for a crime he didn't commit, God didn't abandon him because life went unplanned. The Lord was with him. He found favor with the prison warden. And because of that, he was placed in charge, authority over what? All the prisoners.
Yep.
And then you get to Potiphar, or to Pharaoh. He doesn't explicitly say the Lord's with him, but what does he say? He looks around at all these guys who couldn't tell him what the dream meant. And he's like, hey, there's nobody like this guy in all of Egypt. Surely God's spirit, or the spirit of the gods, is in him. And what he's saying is this guy has some type of divine favor that we would say is him acknowledging, hey, the Lord is with this guy. Because he's with him, he has wisdom and discernment. And because of that, he finds favor with Pharaoh, and he is elevated into a position of authority. And so what you see is you see the same pattern repeated 3 times in the life of Joseph, that ultimately is the fulfillment of his dream because of that position that Pharaoh elevates him to. But the reason you see the same pattern repeated is because it's the same God.
Yeah.
And it's the same God who gave him the dreams. And it's the same God who was with him when everything went completely off the rails from our perspective. And life does not look anything like these dreams, but that's okay because the same God's behind it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I encourage people, yesterday is that, what God did in Joseph's life, he wants to do in your life. God used Joseph to bring about the redemption of the nation of Israel. He used Jesus to bring about the redemption of mankind. And there's nothing in your past so broken or messed up that God can't redeem that and use it for good as well. So what God did for Joseph, he wants to do for you. And sometimes I think that we just have to wait, trust, and have eyes to see that, God plans those unplanned moments, whether we realize it or not.
And sometimes we have to go through the unplanned moments for us to finally come to that realization.
I wouldn't even say sometimes. I think almost every time.
I mean, and we talked about this a little bit throughout the series, but, God plans the unplanned moments, and sometimes it's the result of the other people, right? We saw Joseph's brothers and Potiphar's wife. That was evil that was committed to Joseph, against Joseph by other people. But sometimes our own actions, God allows us to reap the consequences of those.
Sometimes it's not the devil. You're just an idiot.
Yeah. And sometimes it's in those moments, and maybe even oftentimes it's in those moments where finally we have to throw up our hands and realize that, hey, I'm not in control, and we're on our knees and we have nowhere but to look up, and we say, hey, okay, God, I'm ready.
Yeah. I
get it.
It's been a minute, so maybe it's time for me to throw out my all-time favorite Spurgeon quote. When he says, I have learned to kiss the wave that crashes me against the rock of ages. Right? Like when you realize that it's pushing you to Jesus.
That's great.
It's good. Well, running out of time. Before we get finished, though, let's just take a quick peek ahead at November, because we have a lot coming down the pipe in November. You already mentioned one, Matt. We got Operation Christmas Child coming down the pipe.
Those are due back on November 16th.
Yeah, you can, to be clear, you can take them now.
Yeah.
You can start filling them up now.
Oh, yeah. The boxes are available, but we're collecting them that final Sunday on the 16th.
Have you ever filled up a shoebox before the week you had to turn it in?
Probably not.
I have not, I promise you.
I should promise
you. It's always like, oh, shoot, they're due next week. We got to go fill up a box. But it's fun to do. If you got young kids, that's something fun to do with them, because I'll never forget when our oldest, we did it with him, and he's like, wait, this is all these kids are going to get for Christmas? It's like, yeah, it's a moment. It's a moment where you realize that. So Operation Christmas Child, also happening on the 16th, is Harvest Celebration this year. And man, I love Harvest Celebration. It is one of my favorite days of the year. By the end of the night, we're tired, but it's a good tired.
It's like a gigantic family reunion.
Yeah, it's O-Day, but different, right? Because I don't know what makes it different outside of, hey, that's our once a year business meeting where we kind of look at the church and review or whatever. But it feels different. Both are really good, but both are different. And so if you came to O-Day and liked it, I think you'll like Harvest Celebration too, but you'll see what we mean. We got the hay rides, bonfires, bounce houses. I don't know. It just feels like a really good time just to hang out with folks and connect with folks.
But with that, do make sure, please, that you RSVP. That's for food purposes.
Yeah.
You can do that on the website. I know in Live Oak, we have it on our flow page. I'm not sure about Lake City and Branford. They may have it up as well. And also look at your group pages on Facebook, because those links are usually posted there. And the meals provided, but we are asking for people to bring desserts, right?
Yes, sir.
And I think we said, if people want to, like, they're nervous about it, they can bring it to the office the week before, and we'll be happy to tell them if it's good or not.
What is, in your mind, the most underrated dessert, and what is the most overrated dessert?
So I'm probably a bad person to ask, because I have staples, and my staples are banana pudding and pecan pie. And that's like my Thanksgiving, fall. Like, if I see it, I don't want to share calories with anything else, if I'm being honest.
I get it. I get it. I love banana pudding.
I got so much capacity in my stomach. I want to fill it with what I know is
But
good.
See, that's why I asked not what's your favorite, but what's the most overrated, the most underrated?
But what I'm saying is I'm a bad person to ask because I got two options.
Because you don't even go outside of that.
There is no underrated when you have two options.
What if I told you that pecan pie might be my overrated?
Oh, come on.
I don't know. It's never been my thing.
It tastes like family fall.
All right.
Gathering.
So I said it would be up there, but it would not be at the top. Another pie would be my most overrated dessert.
What's that?
Apple pie.
Yeah.
Apple pie is the most overrated dessert. I'm sorry. The only
honest,
way it's better
pie
is with really good ice cream.
The only pie that I eat is pretty much pecan pie. So
see,
I will throw a vote there for apple pie.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't do it for me.
Underrated dessert. I'm going to go with a pumpkin loaf.
Oh, I despise pumpkin.
See, and that's why nobody likes pumpkin.
I don't like the look of pumpkin. I don't like the smell of pumpkin. I don't want anything.
Have you ever had a pumpkin loaf?
I don't want anything pumpkin.
Yeah, see, that's why it's the most underrated.
It makes me nauseous thinking about it.
It doesn't even taste a lot like pumpkin.
It doesn't matter.
It's mainly cream cheese and like spices. But yeah, pumpkin loaf.
Out.
Really?
I'm out.
See, I like pumpkin pie too, if I'm being honest.
Nope.
So you don't do pumpkin spice teas at the shop?
I don't do pumpkin anything.
Will you sell pumpkin fall teas?
I mean, we have pumpkin stuff on the menu.
Yeah, look at you. You sell out.
But if you ask me, should I get pumpkin or something else? I'm going something else every time.
Yeah. Anyway, you guys drop in the comment section on the Facebook post when it gets posted. What's your most overrated, most underrated desserts? I'd like to hear. But then after
I got overrated,
ahead.
And this isn't even a dessert, but it's Thanksgiving cranberry sauce.
I get it. I like cranberry sauce personally, but I get it. Like if
overrated because everybody is like, oh, cranberry sauce. I mean, when you see the canned rings in it, when it's just like this gelatin thing on the table, I'm immediately out on that.
Yeah, I would say if it's not there, I don't miss it. So I get that it's overrated, but I personally like it. And I can do the canned with the rings or the one that still has like actual cranberries in it, whatever. Yeah. There's not a whole lot of food I don't do, if I'm being honest. So after Harvest Celebration on the 16th, the last big day of November is November 23rd, Impact Sunday. We are going to be talking a lot about that in the weeks coming up. So we're not going to talk a lot about it here, except for the fact that if it's not on your radar, put it on your radar. No services on the 23rd. We are going to be serving our communities. And if you need to go ahead and sign up, go ahead and sign up, because like we say, with Harvest Celebration, RSVP helps us know how many to prepare for. Impact Sunday, it's even more important because it lets us know how many people we have to work with, because the more people we know are coming, the more stuff we can get accomplished. So let us know. Anything else?
That's it.
I think it's good. Who you got winning the World Series? Dodgers, Blue Jays?
I mean, with my heart or my head, I think the Dodgers probably will, because they should, because they have like $1 billion in payroll.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would rather them not win.
We are finally at a place where the team from Canada is America's team.
That's right.
Because everybody hates the Dodgers as right. Well, they should. So go Blue Jays. All right. We will catch you guys back here next week on Let's Talk About That.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk About That. We hope it encouraged and challenged you as we continue to grow on this journey of faith and embrace community together. If you have any questions, thoughts, or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us through our social media channels or visit our website to stay connected. Your support is what makes this podcast impactful. If you found today's discussion meaningful, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, share the episode with a friend, and leave a review. Your engagement helps us spread the message and connect with others who can be encouraged through these conversations. Until next time, we hope this episode inspired you to live out your faith this week. Keep the conversations alive, and remember, we're all on this journey together.